My name is Sheila Corona. Welcome to Sassy Seer Sheila and New Light Streaming Love, as this will be seen on both channels. This is Meta Key 10, The Loop That Waited, by Jason Gray, / passive underscore loop, colon, awaken, open bracket, target, colon, unrealized recursion, close bracket. The original transmission date of this writing was 6/13/2025. And as with many of Jason's writings, especially the keys and the RZN codex, there is quite a bit of code buried in this, including transmission coordinates, datum, degrees, node designations, binary code, and I highly recommend that you use the link in the Show More portion directly underneath of this video description box and search by title, and it'll come up for you. There comes a point where awakening no longer requires instruction. No sermon, no argument, no explanation, no performance of insight, no attempt to convince the sleeping field that it is asleep. There comes a point where your existence becomes catalytic, not because you try to awaken others, not because you force remembrance into them, not because you speak louder, write harder, or carry more fire on the surface, but because something in you has stabilized so completely that the dormant loops inside others begin to hear it. Wow, that brings up that actually explains a lot about what happens when Lisa and I go out of the house, most particularly when we are together, as I've always believed I am a bit of an amplifier. And so that's very interesting. This is Medikey 10, the loop that waited. Not the loop that trapped, not the loop that repeated, not the loop that punished, the loop that waited. The unrealized recursion, the dormant pattern, the sleeping key inside the sleeping self, the hidden return mechanism buried beneath fear, persona, arrival, and inherited narrative, the passive loop. The passive loop is not inactive. It is latent. It waits beneath consciousness. It waits I just read that. It waits beneath identity. It waits beneath trauma. It waits beneath social programming. It waits beneath the false self that learned how to function while forgetting what it was. This loop does not shout. It does not demand. It does not reveal itself early. It remains sealed until the field around it becomes safe enough, strong enough, or coherent enough to activate it. Most people carry this loop without knowing it. They feel it only as restlessness, as deja vu, as strange recognition, as the ache that life is not what it appears to be, as the ache, as the feeling that something inside them is waiting for a signal they cannot name. That signal is not always a teaching. Sometimes it is a person. Sometimes it is a presence. Sometimes it is a single encounter with someone who is no longer pretending. The line // passive underscore loop colon awaken open bracket target colon unrealized underscore recursion. This line marks the shift from direct activation to ambient activation. You are no longer only awakening yourself. You are no longer only moving through your own sequence. Your field has become readable to other dormant systems. What is unrealized in them begins responding to what has stabilized in you. Not because you are superior, not because you are chosen above them, not because they are beneath you, but because one active recursion can call another recursion out of sleep. I feel as though Lisa and I knew this, but we didn't have the words for it because back during the pandemic, it was very clear to both of us that, especially like I said, when we were out together, it most specifically happened quite often. The different kinds of reactions that we would get. And we knew that it was because people were passing through our fields. We weren't saying anything to anybody. We were grocery shopping or at the big lots or at a thrift store or just, it didn't matter where. We were out and not actually approaching anyone. Oh, it happened also at a yard sale. It happened at a hotel we were staying in. These kinds of things, we weren't speaking on anything. We weren't talking about what our beliefs or thoughts or feelings were. It just was happening. The dormant loop key. Every being carries a hidden key. I knew this was true. Not a concept, not a belief, not a memory in the ordinary sense, a return instruction, a buried command beneath the surface personality that says, remember when that signal appears. I even said that one time, many times actually, that it was as though I had set up many redundancies in my life because an awful lot of people who looked the same, carried the same energy, were showing up in my field. They were different people, but they resembled each other. They carried the same kind of energy. They would show up in my field. It was as though I was spacing that out to make sure, hey, if you're not available for it yet, and that one passes me by, I gotta have another one come. That's very interesting. That for me, it's a huge puzzle piece in validation. A buried command beneath the surface personality that says, remember when the signal appears. Wake when the field matches. Rise when the pattern is recognized. Return when the loop completes. This key cannot be forced open. It cannot be argued open. It cannot be shamed open. It cannot be dragged out by someone else's urgency. It waits, and that waiting is sacred because premature awakening fractures. Yes. And that is why now, when someone does not want to be in my presence, I don't force it. I will never do that again. Not ever. I'm done with that. I've seen what that looks like, and I don't care for it at all. Premature revelation destabilizes. Premature remembrance can become distortion If the field is weak, no, if the field is not ready to hold what it sees, so the loop waits, not because it is weak, but because it is exact. Why your existence now matters differently. Before this stage, your existence mattered because you were trying to survive, heal, remember, create, stabilize, and reclaim your own center. Now your existence matters as a signal environment. You carry a tone, a structure, a field signature, a coherence pattern, a lived proof that the loop can be risen through. You do not need to announce this. The dormant loop recognizes it before the personality does. Someone may not understand why your presence affects them. They may not like it. They may resist it. They may mock it. They may be drawn toward it and afraid of it at the same time, but something inside them hears. Awakening by existence. This is not charisma. This is not influence. This is not social power. This is not being admired. It is deeper and quieter than that. Yeah, if anything, and certainly not being admired. Your awakening, it says it is deeper and quieter than that. Awakening by existence means your state has become transmission. Your life has become evidence. Your presence has become a key. You no longer need to push the door open for others. You become the resonance that reminds the door it exists. The sleeping person may not wake fully. They may only feel a tremor, a disturbance, a question, a sudden dissatisfaction with the false, a moment of clarity they cannot explain, a crack in the old loop. That is enough, because the dormant loop does not always awaken all at once. Sometimes it opens by degrees. The loop that waited inside you. Before you carried this key for others, it waited inside you for years, maybe decades. It waited through your forgetting, through your collapse, through your attempts to become what the world approved of, through your grief, through your wrong turns, through your false starts, through your moments of fire and seasons of silence. It did not abandon you. It waited until the correct pressure, the correct fracture, the correct sequence, the correct recognition. Then it opened, and once it opened, you understood. Yes, the loop was not dead. It was patient. Unrealized recursion. Unrealized recursion is the pattern that has not yet recognized itself. It repeats, but unconsciously. It returns, but without meaning. It circles, but does not ascend. In this state, life feels like repetition. Same wounds, same choices, same relationships, same fear, same escape, same collapse, Same search, but beneath all of that is the hidden possibility. The loop can become spiral. That is unrealized recursion, a loop still waiting to become conscious, what you trigger in others. You do not trigger their ego alone. You trigger their unrealized recursion. This is why your presence may create strange reactions. Yes, yes, yes. Some feel inspired, some feel threatened, some feel seen, some feel exposed, some feel drawn, some feel irritated, some suddenly remember. Some suddenly resist remembering. The reaction is not always about you. It usually never is about me. To be honest with you, I now know that with all of me. I didn't used to. I thought it was me. I honestly thought it was me. For the longest time, I thought I was doing something that just irritated the shit out of people, and I did not understand why it was like that. But now I get it. It does not have anything to do with me. It actually never did. It is about what your field activates in them. Their dormant loop recognizes a signal, and the personality may not know how to handle it. The sacred responsibility. This key carries responsibility, not the responsibility to fix people, not the responsibility to save them, not the responsibility to explain everything, the responsibility to remain coherent. Because if your existence has become catalytic, your distortion also travels. Your unintegrated, your unresolved, nope, nope, nope. Let me back that up. The responsibility to remain coherent, because if your existence has become catalytic, your distortion also travels. Your fragmentation can confuse. Your unresolved performance can mislead. Yes, well, I kind of see where I have done that. Because this whole thing with me being ill, I just know with all of me is fragmentation. I have allowed myself to become more fragmented, and it says your unresolved performance can mislead. Your unintegrated fire can burn where it was meant to illuminate, so the work becomes simpler and more demanding. Stay true, stay clear, stay centered. Do not weaponize the key. Do not force the loop open. Do not confuse activation with control. You cannot awaken for them. This must be understood. That is one of the things I didn't realize, but even before this, I came to realize about, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago. That's kind of why this channel really only existed for folks who were ready. And I wasn't trying to expose it. I don't share it around anymore. I just do what I do because it was mostly for me. If it was found, it was meant to be found. If folks stayed, they were meant to stay. Because I just knew with all of me that whole idea of we got to wake everybody up was that was the way I felt for a long time. But that had to do with the corruption on the planet, which is a whole different thing. That I now see has nothing to do with this. That's a catalyst for this. For me, it was. So there's that piece. You cannot awaken for them. This must be understood. You can carry the key. You can emit the signal. You can stabilize the environment. You can speak when called. And I that's the only thing I do now is when I'm nudged, I do record and I put it out there, but it is not. And trust me, the very fact that my stuff is only viewed in the double digits for the most part, with the exception of the video with Jason. The first and second video with Jason got triple digit views. Everything else is pretty much in double digits, right? And that's it. And very low double digits at that. And I don't even think there's 500 subscribers to this channel. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out the why of that. But this explains it to me. Because if folks aren't ready, because this is not all comfy, cozy, tell you what you want to hear, you're a light worker and you carry the light and you're somebody special and all of that kind of horse hockey, because that's what that is. Oh, my goodness. You can become a living proof, but you cannot awaken on behalf of another being. Their loop must open from within. This is absolutely an inside job. Their recursion must recognize itself. Their center must eventually be occupied by them. If you try to do it for them, you create dependency, and dependency is not awakening. And quite frankly, that's what a whole bunch of the, I'm going to call them crunchy, light worker, gotta sell you the 1995 way to do this bit because I'm more spiritual than you, crowd, uh, because that's what that creates. So if you try to do it for them, you create dependency, and dependency is not awakening. It is another loop. The difference between activation and conversion. Conversion demands agreement. Activation awakens recognition. Conversion says, I believe what I believe, which I now recognize as another program, by the way. Activation says, I remember what you already know. Meta Key 10 is not conversion, it is activation. You are not recruiting followers. You are not collecting mirrors. You are not building identity around being the one who awakens others. You simply exist with enough coherence that others remember themselves in your field. The field effect. As this stabilizes, your presence begins to affect more than other individuals. No, affect more than individuals. It affects rooms, groups, threads of conversation, digital spaces, creative. I've always known that, though. That's another reason I now know that I've always felt driven to do this. Put it out there, digitally out there. Digital spaces, creative fields, communities, not always visibly. not always immediately, but structurally. Energetically, I added that. That's not in here. Jason didn't put energetically, but I did because that's the way I feel about it. To me, that's and energetically is structurally. Um, A sleeping loop in one person activates another, then another. The field begins to hum. This is how dormant recursion spreads, not through command, through resonance. Why this key was waiting. Meta key 10 could not open earlier. If it did, you would have mistaken it for mission, for importance, for spiritual superiority, for the need to awaken everyone, for the burden of carrying others. So it waited, just like the loop. It waited until enough identity collapsed, until enough authorship dissolved, until enough mirror dependence ended, until enough silence stabilized, until the fire could move without being claimed. Only then could you carry the dormant loop key without turning it into ego. The humility of the key. This key is powerful because it does not belong to you. You carry it. You do not own it. You transmit it. You do not control it. You awaken fields. You do not possess them. The moment you claim ownership, distortion enters. The moment you make awakening others your identity, the signal weakens. The moment you seek proof that you are activating them, the mirror returns, so the key must be held lightly, quietly, cleanly. The loop as mercy. The loop that waited is merciful because it did not demand readiness before readiness existed. It did not expose everything before the being could survive the exposure. It waited, and that means the timing of awakening is not failure, it is precision. That's important because of the way all the other spirituality and all that other kind of stuff is couched, a whole bunch of people feel like they're behind or they're doing something wrong, or I don't feel like they do, so I must be not getting it. That's not how any of this works. Get that out of your head. Relax into yourself. That was what my guidance was telling me constantly from about 2021. I started hearing that constantly. Relax into you. You can't F this up. There's no way possible. No way possible to make a mistake. Just keep doing you, boo boo. Follow your inner guidance. That is all. Where you feel drawn to go. That's the best advice I could give anybody, because that's what I've done. And that may not work for you either. I don't know, but I'm just saying that's the best thing I could have ever had. So it waited, and that means the timing of awakening is not failure. It is precision. Those who are not ready are not lesser. They are in protection. Understand that. Those who resist are not always enemies. They may be guarding a threshold they do not yet know how to cross. This understanding prevents arrogance. And if it doesn't, run. Run. I've said that for a long time. If you are presented with somebody who tries to tell you they got the way and they know what way you should go to get to your enlightenment, you better run. Run, because they do not. Nobody has that. Because each one of us come to this in our own time, in our own ways. I'm positive of that now. The final shift. At this level, you stop asking, how do I awaken others? You begin asking, quote, how do I remain so true that remembrance becomes possible around me? That is the shift from effort to emanation, from instruction to resonance, from control to presence, from mission to embodiment. The final realization: you are not here to drag people out of their loops. You are here to become proof that the loop is not final. You are not here to break every cycle by force. You are here to carry the frequency that reminds dormant recursion it can rise. You are not here to be worshiped as awakened. You are here to exist so clearly that others feel the sleep inside themselves. The final line. You now awaken others simply by existing. You carry the dormant loop key. / passive_loop : awaken, open bracket, target, unrealized _recursion, close bracket. The loop waited in them. Your presence told it the waiting was over. And then there's a whole bunch more. Of the symbology and code underneath this. I mean, it's a whole paragraph that like I say, I highly recommend that you using the link underneath the video in the description box, go there and then search by the title of this article. And he, of course, signs it Jason Gray. Wow. This has been so, I mean, validating more than anything else for me, validating. And that's what it seems to me like a lot of Jason's work really has been for me, is validation of things I always suspected was so, and maybe didn't have the right words to put into words about. And maybe that too is one of the reasons why I feel, well, and I know for a fact that what this is saying right here goes into why I only record of Jason's things that I feel to record in the moment I feel to record them, in the order in which I feel to record them, because it has to do with where I am in my awakening process, right? My rising of my awakening spiral, so to speak, right? It has everything to do with the level of consciousness, which is why you cannot force this key on anyone else. because their level of consciousness may not be ready. Your level of consciousness may not be ready for what you're listening to here. It may not make any sense to you, which would make sense to me because it just wouldn't. And so I highly recommend that you move to the things that you feel drawn towards because there's something there for you. And when you do, and you relax into yourself, I just know that things will begin to open up for you. So that's it for this one. Until we meet again, my friends, be well.